High Counselor Reed stood at the towering window of the Galactic Council's main chamber, his gray fingers pressed against the transparent metal as he watched the countless ships move through the space lanes below. Behind him, the other council members shuffled in their seats, waiting for him to speak. The massive chamber, with its high crystal ceilings and marble-like floors, had seen thousands of years of galactic politics. Today, it would witness another historic decision. Earth, Reed said, turning to face the gathered representatives, a primitive world at the edge of the Orion Arm. Rich in resources, teeming with life, and populated by a species that has barely mastered basic spaceflight. He smiled, showing rows of perfectly white teeth. They will make an excellent addition to our Federation. Ambassador White, standing near the chamber's entrance, couldn't help but admire how smoothly Reed handled the council. The light flowed from his lips like honey, sweet and sticky. Every being in the room knew Earth wasn't being invited to join. It was being marked for conquest. The humans have shown remarkable progress in the past century, Reed continued, activating a holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images of Earth's cities, industries, and military installations floated in the air. Their adaptability and resourcefulness make them ideal servants for our more labor-intensive operations. The council members nodded in agreement. They had all benefited from similar arrangements with other primitive species. The Galactic Council's power was built on such exploitation, hidden behind a mask of diplomatic niceties and false promises. Ambassador White, Reed called out, "You will lead the diplomatic mission to Earth. Present our offer of membership with all the usual guarantees of protection, technological advancement, and cultural exchange." White stepped forward, bowing slightly. "And the extraction plans, High Counselor." "Already prepared." Reed waved his hand, and a new set of holograms appeared. Detailed maps of Earth's mineral deposits, lists of unique biological specimens, and population distribution charts. Once they accept our offer, we'll begin systematic resource collection. The humans will be gradually relocated to labor colonies, starting with their most populous cities. A council member from the agricultural sector raised her hand. "What about resistance?" These humans, while primitive, seem quite numerous. Reed laughed, and others joined in. "Their weapons are centuries behind ours. Their most advanced fighters would be museum pieces in our worlds. They have no shields, no quantum drives, no plasma weapons. They still use chemical rockets and projectile weapons." He shook his head in mock pity. "No, they will not resist. They cannot." White nodded, but something bothered him. In his research on Earth, he had noticed peculiarities. The humans' rate of technological advancement was unusually steep. Their military installations seemed too well organized for a primitive species, and their communications, there were patterns he couldn't quite understand. "Ambassador." Reed's voice snapped him back to attention. "Is something troubling you?" "No, High Counselor," White replied quickly. "Just reviewing the mission parameters in my mind." "Good. You depart in 3 standard days. Remember, we need their willing acceptance of our offer. The paperwork must be perfect. It keeps the Outer Rim worlds happy to see everything done properly." Reed's smile turned cold. "After that, well, efficiency is more important than diplomacy." The council chamber erupted in polite laughter. White forced himself to join in, but he couldn't shake his unease. Something about Earth didn't add up, but he knew better than to voice such concerns. The council had made its decision. As the meeting concluded and the members filed out, Reed caught up with White. "A word of advice, Ambassador," he said quietly. "Don't let their appearances fool you. Humans may look similar to some of our species, but they're nothing more than clever animals. Treat them as such, and this mission will go smoothly." White bowed again and left the chamber. As he walked to his quarters to prepare for the mission, he reviewed Earth's file one more time. The humans had gone from primitive flight to space exploration in less than a century. They had survived multiple global conflicts and emerged stronger. They had adapted to every challenge their harsh world had thrown at them. For the first time in his long diplomatic career, Ambassador White wondered if the Council might be making a terrible mistake. Director James Miller watched the alien ship descend through Earth's atmosphere, its sleek silver hull gleaming in the morning sun. From his position at the United Earth Defense Council headquarters in Geneva, he could see the live feeds from every angle. The ship was beautiful, he had to admit, and absolutely bristling with hidden weapons. "Sir," Tom Cooper called from his monitoring station. "The translation matrices are active and ready." The young analyst's fingers flew across his holographic display, making final adjustments. "But there's something odd about their signal." Miller walked over to Cooper's station, keeping his face neutral. They had been preparing for this moment for decades, ever since they had captured their first alien scout ship in 2045. "Odd how? The public broadcast is clean. Standard diplomatic protocols, just like we expected. But there's a second signal hidden in the carrier wave. It's encrypted, but," Cooper grinned, "not encrypted well enough." Miller allowed himself a small smile. The aliens, like so many advanced civilizations, had grown arrogant. They never expected a primitive species to detect, let alone decode, their secure communications. The alien ship landed on the designated pad outside the council building. Ambassador White emerged, tall and dignified, flanked by his diplomatic team. Miller straightened his uniform and headed to the reception area. "Director Miller," White said, extending his gray hand, "on behalf of the Galactic Council, I bring greetings to Earth." Miller shook the offered hand, noting the subtle signs of the ambassador's superiority complex, the slightly too high chin, the barely concealed look of disdain. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. We're honored by your visit." As they walked to the conference room, Miller's earpiece crackled. Cooper's voice came through, tight with controlled anger. "Sir, you need to see this. The encrypted signal, it's a detailed invasion plan. They're mapping our defenses, marking targets. This isn't a diplomatic mission. It's a reconnaissance operation." Miller kept his face pleasant as they entered the conference room. Large windows offered a view of the Alps, their snow-capped peaks gleaming in the distance. The room was elegant but simple, exactly what you'd expect from a species just beginning to find its place in the galaxy. "Please be seated," Miller said, gesturing to the conference table. "We're eager to hear about the opportunities that joining the Galactic Council would bring." White launched into his prepared speech, talking about cultural exchange, technological advancement, and mutual prosperity. His words were perfect, his manner impeccable. But now that Miller knew what to look for, he could see the predator behind the diplomat's mask. "A question, if I may," Miller interrupted politely. "In the Council's history, how have they typically handled species that resist integration?" White's smile flickered for just a moment. "I'm not sure I understand. Every species we've encountered has been eager to join our federation. The benefits are quite clear." "Of course," Miller nodded. "Though I noticed your ship's plasma cannons are powered up. Standard diplomatic procedure." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. White's expression hardened. "You can detect our weapons. Among other things," Miller said calmly. He pressed a button on the table, and the windows turned opaque. Holograms sprang to life, showing the decoded invasion plans. "Like this message you've been broadcasting since you entered our solar system." White stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. "Impossible. You're a primitive species." Miller finished for him. "Yes, that's what your council keeps saying. It's amazing how much you can learn from a captured scout ship, especially when your engineers are too arrogant to change their encryption protocols for 70 years. The door opened, and security teams moved in, weapons raised. Not the primitive projectile weapons White had expected, but advanced plasma rifles, reversed engineered from the Council's own technology. "Ambassador White," Miller said, standing, "consider this meeting concluded. You have 1 hour to return to your ship and leave Earth's solar system. After that," he smiled, And this time there was nothing pleasant about it. "Well, we've learned quite a bit from studying your weapon systems. I imagine the Council would be very interested in seeing how we've improved upon them." As White was escorted out, Miller's earpiece crackled again. "Sir," Cooper reported, "the ambassador just sent an emergency signal to the Council fleet hiding behind Jupiter. They're moving." Miller nodded. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. "Alert Admiral Stone," he ordered. "Tell her Operation Righteous Fury is a go. Let's show the Council exactly how primitive we really are." High Counselor Reed stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, his face twisted with rage. The holographic displays showed the Council's invasion fleet moving into attack position near Jupiter. "Launch the attack immediately," he ordered. "Show these primitives what happens when they defy the Council." The massive Council fleet emerged from behind Jupiter, 500 ships strong. Their golden hulls gleamed in the distant sunlight as they accelerated toward Earth. The fleet commander, General Stone, smiled as he gave the order to begin the assault. "These humans won't even know what hit them," he said to his bridge crew. "They're primitive sensors." An alarm blared through the command ship. The tactical officer's eyes widened in shock. "Sir," multiple ships appearing from everywhere. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear as hundreds of Earth vessels phased into existence. They had been there all along, hidden by advanced cloaking technology stolen and improved from the Council's own designs. The human ships were smaller, sleeker, and far more numerous than anyone had expected. "Impossible," General Stone shouted. "They can't have phase shift technology. They can't." "Sir, they're firing." Brilliant blue beams of energy lanced out from the Earth fleet, but these weren't the standard plasma weapons the Council used. These were quantum phase torpedoes, weapons that passed right through standard shields as if they weren't there. The first volley alone destroyed 30 Council ships. Back on Earth, Director Miller watched the battle unfold from the command center. Beside him, Tom Cooper coordinated the fleet's movements through their advanced AI tactical systems. "They're trying to regroup behind their heavy cruisers," Cooper reported. "Just like we predicted. Their battle doctrine hasn't changed in 300 years. Miller nodded. "Launch Operation Swarm." From Earth's moon, thousands of automated drone fighters emerged from hidden bases. Each one was barely larger than a car, but carried the same quantum weapons as the larger ships. The Council fleet, designed to fight large capital ships, had no effective defense against such small, agile targets. "Their shields are useless against our weapons," Cooper said, his voice tight with satisfaction. "They're starting to panic." Indeed, the Council fleet was falling into disarray. Their rigid command structure, so effective against less advanced opponents, was now working against them. Ships crashed into each other trying to evade the swarm of Earth fighters. Captains argued over tactical channels about who had command authority. General Stone stared in horror as his fleet fell apart around him. "Pull back. Pull back to Jupiter's orbit. We need tow." His words were cut off as a quantum torpedo passed through his ship's shields and hull, detonating in the engine core. The massive command ship exploded, taking the entire command structure with it. In the Council chamber, Reed watched in disbelief as the battle feeds showed his invasion force being systematically destroyed. "How?" he whispered. "How did they do this?" An aide rushed in with more bad news. "High Counselor, we're detecting similar human fleets appearing near all our major military bases. They're everywhere." Reed collapsed into his chair. In less than an hour, the most powerful military force in the galaxy had been reduced to scattered, retreating survivors. Worse, the humans hadn't just won. They had done it so completely, so efficiently, that no one would ever again believe in the Council's military supremacy. Back in Earth orbit, the battle was ending. The few surviving Council ships fled at maximum speed, their crews shocked and terrified. They had expected to find primitives with chemical rockets. Instead, they had found a technological power that had spent decades preparing for this very day. Miller looked at the tactical display showing the retreating Council ships. "Send the message," he ordered. Cooper nodded and transmitted on all frequencies. To the Galactic Council. This was a demonstration. We could have destroyed your entire fleet, but we chose to let some escape. Remember this day. Remember what happened when you tried to conquer Earth. And remember that we now know the location of every Council military installation, shipyard, and base. He paused, then added the final part of the message. Expect us. In the Council chamber, Reed received the transmission and felt true fear for the first time in his long life. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were coming for the Council itself. And based on what he had just witnessed, they had the power to do exactly what they threatened. The age of Council dominance was over. The era of humanity's revenge was about to begin. Admiral Mary Stone stood on the bridge of the ESS Vengeance, Earth's most advanced battleship. Through the main viewport, she watched as her fleet prepared to jump to their first target, the Council's largest shipyard in the Centauri sector. All ships report ready, Admiral, her second-in-command reported. The AI combat systems are fully synchronized. Stone nodded, her gray eyes fixed on the stars ahead. Unlike the Council's rigid military structure, Earth's fleet operated with a mix of human intuition and artificial intelligence. Each ship had an AI core that could make combat decisions in microseconds, while still following the creative strategies of their human commanders. Begin the attack, she ordered. Execute jump pattern Delta. The fleet vanished in a series of controlled quantum jumps, reappearing around the massive Council shipyard in a perfect sphere formation. The defensive stations there barely had time to raise their alarms before the human ships opened fire. Their shields are following standard Council protocols, the tactical officer reported. Just like we expected. Stone allowed herself a small smile. Deploy the virus. Throughout the shipyard, Council systems began to fail. Their own communication networks, infiltrated by human hackers years ago, turned against them. Defense turrets powered down. Shield generators cycled incorrectly. It was chaos. Ma'am, her communications officer called out, "We're picking up their distress signals. They're begging for mercy." Stone remembered the Council's invasion plans for Earth, how they had intended to enslave humanity. But she also remembered her oath to uphold human values, even in victory. Target their weapons and engines only, she ordered. No need to kill those who surrender. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. The mighty shipyard, pride of the Council's fleet, was now a powerless hulk. Escape pods filled with surrendering crews dotted space around them. Back on Earth, Director Miller watched the success of the operation with satisfaction. Tom Cooper sat at his station, coordinating data from multiple battles happening across Council space. Admiral Stone has secured the shipyard, Cooper reported. And our other fleets report similar successes. The Council's forces are in complete disarray. They never expected us to strike everywhere at once. Miller nodded. And their response? Their propaganda networks are silent. They can't hide this anymore. Every species in the galaxy is watching their mighty Council fall to the primitives they try to conquer. In the Council chambers, chaos reigned. Representatives from member species shouted and argued as reports of defeat after defeat poured in. High Counselor Reed had lost all pretense of control. How are they doing this? He screamed. How can they be everywhere at once? An aide rushed in with more bad news. Sir, the humans, they've released documents. Proof of all our secret operations, our plans to enslave other species, everything. Reed felt his world crumbling. The Council's power had always depended on its image of benevolent leadership. Now that image was shattered. Back on the Vengeance, Admiral Stone received a new transmission from Earth Command. She read it carefully, then turned to her crew. New orders, she announced. We're to head to the Council capital. Earth is ready to deliver its terms for peace. Her tactical officer looked up in surprise. Peace. After what they tried to do to us. Stone's expression was firm but fair. We're not like them. We won't destroy what we defeated. Earth wants reform, not revenge. The galaxy needs leadership. Real leadership, not exploitation dressed up as protection. As the fleet prepared to jump to the Council capital, Stone thought about how far humanity had come. From a primitive species marked for conquest, they had become the force that would reshape the galaxy. But unlike the Council, they would do it with justice and honor. "Send word to all human fleets," she ordered. "The next phase begins now. Let's show the galaxy what real civilization looks like." The Vengeance disappeared in a flash of quantum energy, leading humanity toward its destiny as the galaxy's new guardians. The Council had wanted to make humans their servants. Instead, they had created their own replacement, and the galaxy would be better for it. The Council's Grand Assembly Hall had never been so crowded. Representatives from every member species packed the chamber, their voices a mix of anger, fear, and rebellion. On the massive central screens, Director Miller's recorded message played on repeat, exposing centuries of Council deception. For 300 years, Miller's voice echoed through the hall. The Council has presented itself as a force for unity and progress. Today, we expose the truth. High Counselor Reed sat in his chair, watching helplessly as his empire crumbled. The evidence was overwhelming. Secret documents, recorded meetings, detailed plans for the systematic exploitation of dozens of species. Earth hadn't just defeated the Council's military. They had shattered its reputation. "The Blue Star Alliance withdraws from the Council," announced one representative, his scaled skin shimmering with anger. "We will not be part of this corruption anymore." "The mining guilds of Proxima stand with Earth," declared another. "Too long have we suffered under Council manipulation." One by one, member species denounced the Council. Centuries of carefully maintained alliances fell apart in hours. Reed's attempts to call for order were drowned out by the chaos. In Earth's command center, Tom Cooper monitored the political earthquake spreading across the galaxy. "Sir," he reported to Director Miller, "we're receiving messages from 17 different species requesting immediate diplomatic relations with Earth. They're abandoning the Council faster than we predicted." Miller nodded, watching the feeds, and the Council's response: complete paralysis. Their military is in shambles, their political structure is collapsing, and their economic systems are in freefall. The truth hit them harder than our weapons ever could. On a Council colony world, crowds gathered in the streets, cheering as Earth's ships appeared in the sky. These weren't warships, they were humanitarian vessels, bringing supplies and aid to populations long exploited by the Council. Admiral Stone's voice broadcast across the planet. "People of Proxima Colony, Earth extends its hand in friendship. The Council's exploitation ends today. We bring not conquerors' demands, but offers of true alliance and mutual respect." The response was immediate. Millions of beings, representing dozens of species, celebrated in the streets. Signs in multiple languages proclaimed support for Earth and denounced the Council. Back in the Council chamber, Reed made one last desperate attempt to maintain control. "Think about what you're doing," he shouted over the chaos. "Without the Council, there will be anarchy. We brought order to the galaxy. You brought oppression," countered a representative from a small mining world. "Earth has shown us what real strength looks like, not exploiting others, but helping them stand on their own." The debate was interrupted by a new transmission. Every screen in the chamber lit up with images from across Council space. Earth's ships were everywhere. But they weren't attacking. Instead, they were distributing advanced technology, providing medical aid, and helping rebuild worlds the Council had stripped bare. "This is how a civilized species acts," Miller's voice announced. "We could have destroyed you. Instead, we choose to help build something better." In Earth's command center, Cooper brought up a new report. "Sir, the Council's economic system is completely collapsing. Their currency is worthless. Their trade routes are shut down." Miller watched the data scroll past. "And our alternative? Ready to implement. The new trade network is already operating in 30 systems. Free trade, fair prices, no more council manipulation. Planets that couldn't feed themselves under council rule are already reporting surplus food production. The final blow came when the council's own security forces laid down their weapons. Faced with overwhelming evidence of corruption, they refused to defend the old system any longer. In less than a week, the mighty Galactic Council had been reduced to a handful of loyal worlds. Their military was destroyed, their economy ruined, their political power shattered. But Earth's revenge wasn't in destruction, it was in building something better from the ashes. As Miller prepared to address the galaxy again, he smiled at the irony. The Council had wanted to enslave humanity. Instead, they had freed the galaxy from its own enslavement, becoming the architects of their own destruction. Admiral Stone stood on the command deck of the EF's Vengeance, watching as her fleet surrounded the Council's last military stronghold. The massive space fortress hung against the backdrop of a red giant star, its weapons powered down, its shields failing. "Final status report," she ordered. Her tactical officer responded quickly. "Operation Righteous Fury is 98% complete. Of the Council's original 1,000 military installations, only this one remains. Their remaining forces are trapped inside." Stone nodded, remembering how different things had been just 2 weeks ago. The Council had thought themselves invincible. Now their mighty military lay in ruins, defeated not just by Earth's superior technology, but by their own arrogance. "Open a channel to the fortress," she commanded. "Let's end this without more bloodshed." The main screen flickered to life, showing the fortress commander's face. His expression was a mixture of fear and defiance. "Come to destroy us humans?" he asked bitterly. "No," Stone replied calmly. "We come offering a choice. Surrender honorably, and you'll be treated with respect. Your troops will be allowed to return to their homeworlds. This is the same offer we've made at every installation, and those who accepted can confirm we kept our word." Inside the fortress, confusion spread among the alien troops. They had been told humans were savages, yet here they were, offering mercy from a position of total victory. Tom Cooper's voice came through on a secure channel. "Admiral, our AI systems have completed their analysis. The fortress's shields are following the same patterns we've seen before. We can disable them anytime." "Hold that option," Stone ordered. "Let's see if they choose wisdom over pride." The fortress commander's face showed internal struggle. Everything he had believed about humans had been proven wrong. His mighty council had been exposed as corrupt. His superiors had abandoned him. And now his enemy was offering him a dignified way out. "How do we know we can trust you?" he asked. Stone's response was simple but powerful. "Because we're not like the council. We don't need to lie or deceive. Our strength comes from truth and justice, not fear and manipulation." To prove her point, she transmitted data showing how Earth had treated other surrendered Council forces. Medical care for the wounded, safe transport for troops returning home, fair treatment for all. The fortress commander looked at the evidence, then at his own troops. They were tired, demoralized, and cut off from support. The council they had served so loyally had crumbled in the face of Earth's revelations. We surrender," he finally said. Stone allowed herself a small smile. "A wise decision. Prepare to receive our medical and support teams." As Earth's ships moved in to secure the fortress, Director Miller watched the operation from Earth's command center. "Last stronghold secured," he noted, and without firing a shot. Cooper nodded, updating his displays. "That makes it official, sir. The Council's military power is completely broken. Their remaining loyal worlds don't have enough forces to defend themselves, let alone fight back." Miller studied the strategic display, showing Earth's forces spread across the galaxy. In just 2 weeks, they had dismantled the military machine that had terrorized space for centuries. But they had done it their way, with precision, mercy, and justice. "Send word to all Earth forces," Miller ordered. "Operation Righteous Fury is complete. Begin Phase 2, Reconstruction and Reconciliation. Across the galaxy, Earth's ships began changing their roles. Warships became rescue vessels. Strike crews transformed into engineering teams. The very fleet that had brought the Council to its knees now worked to heal the wounds of centuries of exploitation. In the Council's former fortress, Admiral Stone watched as medical teams treated injured alien troops. Engineers worked to restore damaged systems. And in the command center, human and alien officers began working together to coordinate relief efforts. "Send a message to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them the military phase is complete. The path to a new galaxy lies open before us. And this time, it will be built on cooperation, not conquest." The stars seemed to shine brighter as the last echo of the Council's military power faded into history. Humanity had not just won a war. They had changed the very nature of power in the galaxy. The great hall of the former Council chamber looked very different now. Gone were the towering thrones that had placed Council members above everyone else. Instead, a circular table dominated the room, with seats of equal height for all representatives. Director Miller stood at the entrance, taking in the symbolism of the change. In just 1 month, the galaxy had transformed more than it had in the previous 1,000 years. High Counselor Reed sat in one of the regular seats, his once proud posture now humble and resigned. "The new Galactic Charter is ready for signing," Tom Cooper announced, standing next to Miller. "Representatives from 200 worlds are present. Even species that were never part of the Council want to join." Miller nodded, watching as the chamber filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some had been Council members, others their victims. Now, they would all sit as equals. Admiral Stone entered, her uniform crisp but free of the excessive decorations Council military leaders had favored. She had become a symbol of Earth's new way. Powerful, but just, strong but merciful. "Security report," Miller asked her quietly. "The last pockets of Council resistance have surrendered," she replied, "and our reconstruction teams report ahead of schedule on most worlds. It turns out when you help people rebuild instead of exploiting them, they work pretty hard." The chamber fell silent as Miller stepped up to the central podium. Hundreds of eyes, some human, most alien, all focused on him. 1 month ago, he began, the galaxy stood at a crossroads. The Council's way of corruption and exploitation was exposed. They expected Earth to seek revenge, to become new oppressors. Instead, we chose a different path. He gestured to the documents displayed on floating screens around the room. "Today, we signed the new Galactic Charter. Not Earth's charter, not the Council's charter, but one created together by all our peoples." The key points appeared on the screens in multiple languages. Equal representation for all member worlds. Shared technology and resources. Mutual defense obligations. Protection for developing species. Free trade without exploitation. Joint scientific research. Cultural exchange programs. Reed stood up slowly. All eyes turned to him, many still angry at what the Council had done. As the former High Counselor, he said, his voice shaking, "I acknowledge our failures. Earth didn't just defeat us. They showed us a better way." Miller nodded in acknowledgement. The past cannot be changed. But the future is what we make of it. Earth's revenge against the Council wasn't destruction, it was transformation. One by one, representatives came forward to sign the charter. Former Council worlds signed alongside their former victims. Newly discovered species signed next to ancient civilizations. Each signature represented not just a world, but a commitment to a new way of governing the galaxy. Tom Cooper, monitoring the proceedings, smiled as he checked his datapad. "Sir, the first joint projects are already showing results. Shared technology has solved food shortages on 12 worlds. Combined medical knowledge has cured diseases that plagued some species for centuries. And the military situation?" Miller asked quietly. Admiral Stone answered with pride. "The new combined defense fleet is operational. Earth's ships serve alongside former Council vessels, protecting trade routes and responding to natural disasters. They're learning from each other, growing stronger together." As the last signatures were recorded, Miller stepped forward again. Let history record that today marks not just the end of the Council's corruption, but the beginning of true galactic civilization. Earth's revenge is complete, not through destruction, but through creation. The chamber erupted in applause and cheers in 100 different languages. Former enemies embraced. Old hatreds began to heal. Outside the chamber, Earth's ships patrolled alongside their former adversaries. Research teams from dozens of worlds shared discoveries. Trade ships moved freely through space lanes that once required heavy bribes to access. The Council had thought they were capturing a primitive species to exploit. Instead, they had awakened humanity's greatest strengths. Not just the power to fight, but the wisdom to make peace, the strength to show mercy, and the vision to build something better from the ashes of the old order. High above, the stars seemed to shine brighter on the dawn of a new age. Earth's revenge was complete, and the galaxy was better for it.